kind of an addendum to the first thing. One of the reasons why I keep coming back to Destiny is I'm familiar enough with it. Familiarity is always a big thing. A lot of companies build on nostalgia and familiarity. Um, Go with the brand you've known for all these years, even though it's probably giving you cancer. In any case, yeah, it took me a long time to finally say fuck off to McDonald's, except for their chicken nuggets and the occasional milkshake. If I feel like I want to cleanse, I order one of their milkshakes. Their chicken nuggets are okay. I mean, cheap versus expense versus satiation. I would say I'd rate it about a 3 out of 5. It's average. Um, I'd much rather would get a bag of frozen nuggets from the grocery store and either microwave them or air fry them myself. But if you're on the road and you're getting hungry and you need to keep your mind focused with so you need a caloric intake, a boost, if you will. Chicken nuggets do it for me. All right, I wouldn't recommend them because they're not a daily thing. By the way, either this is like you know. Uh, this is like a treat kind of situation. And that's what fast food was for me when I was growing up. It was a treat. It wasn't something we had every day. And when I first got married and we were kind of struggling and on a hectic schedule, bouncing all over the place between jobs, some school, and, getting familiar with the families, there was a lot of fast food on the road. And we now carry that journal with us all the time because that's it. Your body is a journal, and these are some really fat chapters in here. But yeah, so coming back to Destiny, it's the familiarity with the mechanics and the crunchiness of the stats and all that stuff. But even in the lobby selections, even in the activity selections, I know certain things about certain things. So this week's Iron Banner has proven to be a bit of a challenge for me. I think I've finally gotten the vibe, or I would say that the algorithm has finally figured out who I am as a player because I get balanced matches as long as I'm choosing freelance. Now I am playing as a rando. I just played a matched game. I call it matched, where fire teams are enabled, and it was pretty okay. It wasn't savage, like I said, I've said this so many times before. I am totally in support of asymmetric matching because that's what real world battles are. And if you're coming to a first person shooter for a powder fantasy, sorry, for a power fantasy, um, part of the fantasy is having that little touch of reality to it, or what we would perceive to be a reality in the game. Now, what do we define as a reality is very loosely based around a form of consistency, and that consistency is typically in the game's engine. Destiny's engine has been very, very sketchy from the very start. There's very minor glitches here and there. Everybody likes to blame Telesto, but I don't think that's really the case. I think it's really just mismanaged admins. Uh, yeah, I'm one of those. I don't blame the clerk for bad service. I hold the person who trained them responsible, and I hold the person who hired that trainer and who trained them responsible. So when I ask to see the manager, it's not to get satisfaction for bad service. It's to remind them they need to retrain their employees from time to time, keep them up to date with the current trends in the market as the customers are concerned, because customers change. Customers change, and the only way you could ever support your customers is if you know how they change. Case in point, when we talk about Games Workshop product, a lot of people are tending more towards the skirmish level games. Kill teams become very, very, very popular. 30K, which is the Wars Heresy era of the Warhammer 40K universe, has become very popular. Not just because it's current thing, it's because it's always been a fan favorite and people have customized rules. And a lot of times when players will be like, well, look, it's 8th edition right now, let's play some 3rd edition Warhammer 40K and call it Horus Heresy. Um, just to kind of be a tongue-in-cheek kind of thing, because there's always been a goofy kind of, gallows humor in the 40K community, and that's always been a consistency. But now you have a customer base that is more prone towards more expensive models, but smaller units of them. And GW has always kept pace with the customers' trends, so they could maintain their margins, and that's important for a company to stay active and alive. Um, because if they started ignoring those margins and overpricing their product, they're going to create price sensitivity, is what Hasbro's CEOs very clumsily pointed out to their collectors complaining about $25 and $30 action figures. Which, I mean, I stopped collecting Hasbro when 3 3/4 inch scale figures went over 10 inches, went over $10. Um, but I am picking up the retro recasts, just because I like the style, and I mean, I don't play with my action figures. I do use them from time to time in tabletop skirmish games. And again, like I said, I'm a tabletop skirmish game. So GW is on the key when it comes to their customers, whereas Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro seems to be kind of suffering from a little bit of entitled blindness. They're so used to their customers buying just about anything that comes across their tables that they're not considering that while they have a commitment to their investors and the stock and their um, board of directors and stuff like that, while they have a commitment to improving profits every quarter, they're actually losing money now because they've outpriced the vast majority of their collectors. When I was going to college, we talked a lot about things. We talked about sneakers. We talked about, you know, musicians. We talked about anything that was a collectible kind of situation. We talked about, like, when I talk about music, I'm talking about like collector albums, like the swirl colored vinyl albums that were like special releases and stuff. And sneaker collecting is a luxury hobby. It is a very elitist hobby. And elitism is not something that's there as a toxic element. It is just intrinsic in the activity because you have to have a certain kind of tax bracket in order to afford that kind of hobby. And Games Workshop has always been a little bit of a luxury hobby. Now, when it first started off with Rogue Trader, Adventures in 40,000, the Millennium, 41st Millennium, it was a kind of an RPG combat game, kind of like 4th edition Dungeons and Dragons. It leaned very heavily into, it had a lot of RPG elements. You could customize personalities for your commanders and even your individual troops. 40K started off really as a skirmish game, and by 2nd edition, that's when it went into the slightly larger, 2 to 3, units of miniatures of about, 5 to 10 miniatures each. That started getting into broader ranges of models. But the whole point is that, the reason why I keep coming back to Destiny is because I have that familiarity, but Destiny seems to, like, they're not quite up on customer wants. Or they're relying upon their algorithms to sort their customers out. Like, I'm playing a lot of Crucible this week because it's Iron Banner. When it's not Iron Banner, I don't play any more Crucible than what is required to get the 8 bounty challenge done for Bright Dust. I used to play a lot of Gambit, and I stopped playing Gambit because, outside of the 8 bounty challenge, or if I'm chasing an ornament, or a pinnacle, or a chase weapon. So the game is, I'm not presenting any one consistent activity to the game other than the fact that I like the seasonal arenas. I'm sure it's probably figured that out because I start getting good loot out of that. So Destiny, Bungie says that play what you want and you will get good loot. But there are certain aspirational activities that will give you better power ratings, which help you with other activities. So I'm in Iron Banner specifically to boost my power level for my character and to hopefully find a couple of pieces of gear, including weapons, that might actually benefit the stat line for my character. So I play activities for the betterment of my character. As a player myself, I'm always trying to get better, whether win or lose or not. And I like that about Destiny. But anyway, so back to this. Playing the match game used to be really fun for me, and it was pretty balanced and, I won't say balanced. It had a nice flow. There was a consistency in it, but it seems like the match game that I got into, which was the only one example, was kind of like, so I would say if you're playing solo, definitely play the freelance. If you're playing with a friend or two, obviously you're going to have to be in the basic one. But the point being is that, yeah, the challenges are just playing the game in a subclass, it seems like, and I don't know, it just feels grindy. So that's the part that pushes me away. It's kind of like, yeah, they're a really nice person to hang out with, but you know, their hands are up their nose half the fucking time. So, and you don't want to, you have to like the whole thing, or be patient enough with the things you're not totally kick with. I'm not a relationship expert, but in my own personal experience throughout life, um, if the one thing you have to overlook happens only every now and then, or is a trigger, you can get around it. You can work with it. You should never work out of it. People used to go on and on about in the 1990s about thinking outside of the box, and I always used to come back, you know, when people would ask me, "How did you pull that off?" And I says, "I was thinking with the box. I wasn't thinking in the box, and I wasn't thinking outside of the box. I was using the box." And that's what I like about gameplay, and that's what I like about Destiny. Destiny is a really nice box, and you can work with that box. Um, but you know, the meta is shifting, and we're getting ready for a new season and a new expansion. And I'm still on the fence as to whether or not I'm going to buy in for the annual pass or not. Uh, I'm going to have to see what the seasonal activity or what the main campaign activity is going to be like before I can actually want to do it. So far, it's the usual Guardians flying through the air, flashes of light all over the place, explosions, boom, 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 Michael Bay. And yeah, so why do I keep coming back to Destiny? It's the familiarity, it's the nostalgia. I've been a fan of Bungie Studios since Oni. Um, I'm kind of excited for Marathon, but I mean, they've got to tighten up their PvP. They got to tighten up their Crucible style gameplay because it's way too swingy. That's the problem. Is that I don't mind an asymmetric battle. Small, under-equipped forces have always been known to overtake more organized, larger forces. It's the nature of battles. But it's like there needs to be a tighter hand taken with, you know, cheaters. Honestly, that's kind of really what it comes down to. Or, you know, something about their crossplay is just they haven't figured it out. It just feels off. It's, you know, it's like you get in your car and you go for a couple of blocks and you're like, something feels wrong with the car. And then, like, about, you know, a day or two later, you start hearing a rattling or a whining noise in the engine. You're like, ah, fuck, that happened. You know, something about Crucible over the last month or so has just felt off. And I don't know what it is. I don't read the 12s. I don't read the patch notes. I probably should go do that. My answers might be in there. But I kind of like not to do that because for me, it's fun to be able to figure it out and then go back and say, I was right. Or, oh, fuck, I was wrong. I got to learn better about that. And I do the same thing with movies, you know, or TV shows or even stories. You know, I look for the little markers of like, okay, there's a setup. Oh, no payoff. That's kind of clumsy. Maybe it'll pay off in the next chapter. Oh, still no payoff. Next book, no payoff. Third book, no payoff. Fourth book, no payoff. Never gets paid off. It's just this dangling Chekhov's gun. That annoys the shit out of me. If you're going to set something up, pay it off. But anyway, so payoff here for this video is understand that Destiny, for some reason right now, Destiny particularly, because to set up a checklist, like, you know, when you go to Instagram or Reddit or Twitter or Facebook, you can pick subjects that you want to be, you know, that you want to look at. Like, I know I have miniature painting, I have acrylic art paintings. There's nothing like that in gaming, and I think that a video game could benefit from that. Might help out, you know, them saying, it says, oh, well, you like to do all this, you play mostly alone, might I recommend you play freelance? You know what I'm saying? It says, oh, you selected matched game. Understand that we recognize that you play freelance mode, you play solo mostly, maybe freelance may be better. And, you know, everybody used to joke about, you know, Windows, that one Windows. Are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure? We don't need that, but just some kind of like, you know, hey, it looks like you're doing this. Might we recommend trying this today? That kind of situation, you know. It's like when I walk into, you know, some restaurants, especially when, you know, I was younger and I would dine out a lot more. I got, you know, they figured me out. They knew who I was when I'd walk in, and you know, the server would come up and they would be like, "Would you like your regular? Would you like the usual?" Or they would say, "Hey, you know, we noticed that you prefer, you know, this particular meal. We have a special on this particular meal. It's very similar, and I think you might enjoy it." I'd be like, "Yeah, sure. What the fuck? I'll try the special." You know, it's called salesmanship. And I'm not being sold on the game anymore. That's the problem, I think. That's one of the problems. That's one of the things there. So, yeah, there we go. I think that's going to wrap it for the day. Thank you guys for stopping by. I'm sorry for the No, I'm not going to apologize for that because it's there for a reason. Um, yeah, yeah. Anyway, I'm going to go play.